All right. We're going to start with white here. What opening shall we do? I'm going to start with e4 and we'll go from there. Starting with e4, how should we continue? All right, well, knight f3 still affords us a lot of options. Wait and see how our opponent responds. Knight c6. Knight c6. All right, well, there's, there's d4. Bishop c4 still leaves a lot to be desired. I'm going to go with bishop c4. It's still very flexible. A lot of different ways that black can reply here. Knight f6. And I think there's a game that we haven't really done so far, which is the fried liver. Seems to be a fan favorite. So I'm going to play knight g5. Now, knight g5 is like, I feel like this used to be the forced win of this opening. This used to be GG. Like, if you played this, back when I was a kid, if you played this, the game was over. Allowing knight g5 was like equivalent to a loss. d5, pawn takes, but I mean, when you're at 700, who the heck knows that after knight takes, there's knight f7? Who the heck knows? It's not too normal. So, yeah, d5 is the move, and knight g5 is not crazy strong, but after pawn takes, surprisingly, the only moves that are worth playing here for black are moves that don't really take the pawn back. So knight takes d5, unfortunately, offers a few options for white, but most notably, knight takes f7. The king takes back, queen f3 check, hits the knight, and the only way to save it is to play king e6, which obviously bringing the king into the middle of the board is not terribly enticing. So I'm going to play this knight takes f7 move because this is pretty much, I mean, man, I probably haven't looked at this seriously for white in decades. I mean, probably 2 decades. This is something that I learned when I was starting chess, and I was pretty much found out knight takes f7. That's a wicked strong move, but do I know anything other than that? Not really, right? We're just going to follow our main idea. Queen f3 check, double attack. You can't play your knight in the way. It's pinned. And if you bring your queen out, well, then I can take this with either piece. So knight takes d5, actually a mistake. The king goes back, of course. Why would it not? Right? Now we can grab this knight with either piece. Queen takes, offers a trade. That's fine. The bishop takes, obviously threatening checkmate in 1, and maybe threatening this knight as well. Looks pretty tempting. So definitely bishop takes on d5. 2 threats. Knight d4, for example. Oops. Our opponent has to be quite alert here. These pieces are lining up on the most tender square on the board, f7. Lots of ways to defend it. These queen moves all do the trick. Technically, moving the queen anywhere does the trick because then the king has a square. King d7, it kind of works. I'm not going to lie. It kind of does work. Because king d7, now there's no longer mate. The king will go to d6, and there's no immediate mate. If we check the king on either of these squares, king d6 actually hits our queen as well, so I like those moves even less. I'm still interested in queen f7, but obviously, he's got things like queen e7 or bishop e7. Lots of moves that black can play. So king d7, for the most part, it does do the job. It does get the king out of checkmate. So how are we going to proceed? Knight c3, developing a piece is always nice. Do we want to continue with queen f7 when it seems to only invite queen e7? Right? It's like, is that actually a good thing? I'm bringing his queen into the game, and if I'm just trading queens, why did I bother doing that? So the first thing that comes to my mind is, okay, you just made a king move. I can't do a lot with these two pieces right now, but if I bring the knight in, there might be a lot of situations where we could think about delivering a potential checkmate idea to a king using our knight, our bishop, and our queen. If we just have a queen and bishop, I don't really think we have enough. This move always gets met by that. Queen f7, he always blocks. So I am kind of looking at maybe knight c3, knight c3, knight d4 seems like the most aggressive reply, and then queen f7. That's an idea. Another really simple idea is just taking the knight and developing the pieces like that. Right? Just take, develop, and figure it out later. Somewhere in between check, take, and knight c3. This is these are the three candidate moves I'm thinking of. Castle, I don't know. I feel like the pieces need to develop here. So knight c3, knight d4. Yeah, the queen will move somewhere. I still think there's a fight to be had. Not sure that there's anything there for me. Knight there. Queen check, the queen just goes there. And remember, the knight's hitting c2 as well. So I'm a little bit bothered by knight d4, knight takes c2, or the possibility of that. So I am definitely thinking queen f7 for that reason. That even if the queen goes here, at that point I could simplify a lot of material, and black's going to be down a pawn and have an isolated pawn. So I like queen f7, but I'll probably follow it up with knight c3. I like knight c3, but I don't really know if allowing knight d4 is what I want. Knight d4 hitting the c2 pawn is a little uncomfortable. So for example, if black goes here, then knight c3 is threatening a potential checkmate. Knight e4 would be mate there. If not king d6 and knight e7, well, I have e6 available, but I can also just develop. If bishop e7, again, I have e6 as a check available, but I can also play knight c3. Queen e7, I'm probably in the business of trading. So wait and see which one he decides to do, but I know that I'm up a pawn here, which is why I can always keep it really simple. And for example, after queen there, just trade pieces, and that should be enough. All right, knight e7 was chosen. If queen e6 check, king e8, there's nothing better for me to do than play queen back to f7. So that does not really help me, just so we know. Bishop e6, also absolutely playable, forces the king out. But then I will have to trade this, and is this move going anywhere? I think I have it regardless. So in this case, I think we're interested in just getting developed, bringing the bishop out, and again, taking the trades when they present themselves. Knight takes bishop is not possible, so I don't need to rush. I'm just going to develop. I'm just going to develop the knight. Queen e6 takes on e5. Would have lost my bishop last turn, so I had to be a little careful. Black needs to develop, so that's actually a great move. c6. It does do what he needs. If queen check, king there, we could take on e5. But again, they do have king e8 as well. Otherwise, bishop to e6 looks like a fantastic move. Trade the bishop on c8 and keep it simple. Keep it simple. So I like this, but I know that if I go here, if he goes there, I can repeat it. But I also know if I go here, he could go there, and then I would take on e5 with check. So in this case, repeating the moves actually makes sense because now that's not forced. Now there's an option that he makes a mistake. So I'm definitely going to invite him to potentially go there. If he goes there, no problem. I'll go back and then I'll play a different move. But now there's actual reason for me to repeat because there's a possibility that he makes a mistake. And I would say this is a mistake. I'm happy to play queen takes e5 check. He doesn't go to e8. Of course, he's going to go to this square, which is the square he just made available for himself. Why not? And after queen d6, although my opponent's been playing very well to recover from this, I'm up 2 pawns. Not going to overthink things here. Let's take that queen and make our life simple. Check. King has to recapture. And then we can just save our bishop. Okay, he did take back. That's reassuring. I don't really like the bishop on that diagonal, so I don't think I'm going to put it there. I'll just bring it back to b3, and we want to do moves like castle, d3 or d4, and maybe bishop f4 with tempo. That's the plan. Ooh, bishop d7. Why are we happy to see this move? Well, after d4, technically, we're threatening mate. Technically. So this is now a great looking move. Covering that square. That square is covered. The pieces cover those squares. d5 is covered as well. The pawn's in the way. All that's needed is that. And it would be a checkmate. So a normal looking d4 move, which I would play anyway, actually threatens checkmate in 1. So we're very, very happy to play a move like d4. Remember, I'm still ready to castle, but I also might go here and then castle long, which also seems to make a lot of sense. Knight f5. Ah, that sucks. We won't be getting our mate here, guys. But let's continue to develop with tempo. Check. The king only has 1 square. The king's very thankful right now that on the last turn, white did not do something a little, or thankful that he played this move so that my bishop f4 would not knock him out completely. So now he's realizing that. He's like, oh, that square is available. It's the only one I can go to. Oh yeah, my knight was just there. I guess that was a great move. And he'd be right. King e7. Couple options. I can give another check. But castling long is what I want to do. My 2 rooks belong here, clearly. It doesn't matter where my king goes because we're in an endgame. I'm not in danger. I'm the one who's pressuring here, not my opponent. So because of all that, I'm pretty happy to castle long. Bring a rook here, and the other rook just slides to e1. So we're definitely going to be long castling. The only question is, do we want to play bishop g5 check? Or do we want to just castle? Check. The king moves, we castle, and we're intending to play rook to e1. If we don't castle, or sorry, if we don't check, and we just castle first, then we're threatening rook e1, but the king will probably run this way. So it's a really close call. I don't think I could say exactly which one looks better. They both look really good, but I think the simpler one objectively is to castle. Like, this keeps it nice and easy. Not overthinking, defending our pawn, rook over here. I mean, nice and easy. Okay, and maybe waiting paid off because that move does immediately walk into this. So there's a few things here. I could check on e1, force king to f6, and then look for something there. Maybe g4. I don't know if it's mate though. Or I could check first, and if the king goes back, I have more options. Right? Of course I could just take that, but I don't think that's good enough. I don't think that's good enough. I'll be honest. So it really feels like rook e1 is a great move, but if the king starts escaping here, are we actually delivering mate? I'm not sure that we are. So I'm going to start by ensuring that at least I win material here. This is the worst case possible. I just take the rook. But I might have better, because I assume king to e8 will be played. And I just didn't want to give him the option to run this way. Now the bishops really work together. Rook e1 is coming. And king to d6. Why are we happy to see that? Well, we get the whole rook now. And after taking that, we also set ourselves up for mate. Knight to e4. So we'll take a free rook. We're covering these squares. Everything is covered here. Knight e4. The bishop's covering d5 will be the last move needed. So bishop e7, knight e4 is actually a mate. Kind of a cute one. And easy to miss, that's for sure. Look, a very good move. In fact, threatening to win my bishop. A tremendous move. It's a very good idea. And honestly, that trap would probably work. But I just have mate in one here. So you're not going to have time to play it. But I mean, setting up bishop h6 is very crafty. But surprisingly, the king gets mated smack in the middle of the board. Knight check. This bishop's covering from behind. This bishop's covering from the front. And the pawn plays an important role as well. Knight e4 mate. Now, if I told you I had a brilliancy this game, where would you think I got it from? What move? Well, we did the fried liver with knight g5. As I said, d5, I think most players know to do this. But after knight takes on d5, there's already a sacrifice that works. And yes, you guessed it. Brilliancy, knight takes f7. Because this actually gives white an advantage, and this is the one trap they teach you over and over again, which is why the fried liver is so attractive for new players to chess, for kids. I mean, the opportunity to do that to your opponent is like, oh man, so sick. But this is total theory so far. Nothing a problem for black at all. Knight a5, b5, many good moves, but you have to know them. Do you know them at 700 ELO? I'm not sure that you do. Here, obviously, my opponent didn't. Took back normally. I mean, it's a normal move, but runs into knight f7, queen f3, and immediately we take on d5. Right? So this is what should happen. Either one of these moves, but let's just say knight a5. This bishop is being forced to a subpar square. I mean, d3 sucks because you can't move your pawn. e2 sucks because you're in the way of your queen. And f1 sucks because it's, well, right back where you came from. Right? And meanwhile, your knight's going to be kicked out. You can't use e4. You know, if it goes to e2, it can be kicked again. And, you know, you just look at moves like this. And if you don't play knight e5 here, and you play knight g1, you're like, hang on a sec. Am I even happy with this position? I'm the one that played all this, and then look at my pieces now. Yeah, you're up a pawn as white, but I don't even know if that's enough compensation. So this is very studied. Honestly, it's very drawish, very boring now, because there's engines that just figure this stuff out for you. But I recommend taking a look. There's so much to know here. After pawn takes, knight takes is a mistake, but a lot of people are still going to fall into that. Do I recommend playing the fried liver as white? I don't, because as soon as someone knows how to deal with your move knight g5, then it just, I don't like the positions for white here. It gets really boring to play it. You might get outplayed. It might just be like a, you know, ton of theory to remember. I don't think it's very rewarding. So this is kind of like a, you know, a trick that works at low elo once in a while, but you don't really get to do much after this, right? As soon as people stop it, and you're kind of like, why am I playing this? You know, it's a trick. It's designed to give you a quick win once in a while, but if people know how to play against it, I don't think it's worth. So I decided to do a fried liver game, but ultimately I don't think people are going to be blundering into this all the time, and I don't think it's worth playing the opening, hoping that they blunder into it so that you get what you want. So obviously you can give it a try, but once you run into someone who plays some sort of active move like this, you're like, what the hell? They know what they're doing. You feel like you're in their jungle. This is not comfortable to play against if you don't know what you're doing as white. Most people play the fried liver and just assume people blunder into this. But when they don't, you have to still know what you're doing. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do. So if you're interested in it, have a look at the theory. There's lots of it out there. As you can see, these are all book moves. e5, knight a5. But for me, the fried liver kind of loses its touch, and there are many, many more simple ways to play here. Especially if you're playing the Italian, you're kind of giving away a lot by playing knight g5 instead of a much simpler move like d3, c3, castle, these kind of things, knight c3, all these kind of basic moves. So what would I play instead after knight there? Either d3 or castle, even d4, these kind of moves. All right, but that's the fried liver. I decided to play a game in it. I don't recommend it personally. Not my favorite, but hard to do a whole series without at least trying the fried liver once. So there's our fried liver game.